The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the rapid collapse of communist regimes throughout Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union surprised most Western scholars and Soviet experts. For some, however, it confirmed what they had suspected all along, that communism was a vision of society ultimately doomed to failure. One thinker in particular had spent a lifetime trying to show why communism couldn't work and why trying to force it to work would prove disastrous. Before he was finally vindicated, Friedrich August von Hayek was dismissed, ridiculed, and ignored. Yet, in the end, even defenders of socialism came to concede that he was right. To a remarkable degree, Hayek's personal and professional fortunes and the intellectual battles in which he found himself are also the story of the 20th century. In his 25 books and hundreds of articles, Hayek articulated an elaborate and inspiring vision of the free society. His insights continue to shape how we think about the social and economic problems of our time. Liberty Fund proudly presents A Profile in Liberty, the life and thought of Friedrich August von Hayek. Descended from Austrian nobility, Friedrich August von Hayek was born in 1899 in Vienna, the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and one of the leading intellectual capitals of Europe. Hayek's parents were deeply enmeshed in that world. His father was a doctor and an eminent botanist. His maternal grandfather had served as president of Austria's Statistical Commission. Hayek's two brothers would both become professors and physical scientists, Hans in anatomy and Erich in chemistry. His cousin Ludwig Wittgenstein would become famous as a philosopher. Hayek's first intellectual interest was in the sciences, especially botany. As a child, he helped his father categorize alpine plants. In addition to scientific pursuits, he took up photography and the theater and physical interests such as skiing, sailing, and mountain climbing. In his teens, Hayek turned to the study of human learning and behavior, and for a time he considered becoming a psychiatrist. In June 1914, a single occurrence set in motion a series of events that would recast the world and the life of young Hayek. Archduke Ferdinand of Austro-Hungary was assassinated, setting the stage for the war to end all wars. World War I's effects were devastating to the old order. The long-standing Austro-Hungarian dynasty of the Habsburgs was out of power. In Russia, the Romanov dynasty had been destroyed, and communism was the new social order. Hayek, like many young Europeans after the war, was drawn to socialism. For Hayek, the appeal of socialism lay in its attempt to solve social ills by applying scientific principles to government planning and control of the economy. Hayek was pulled towards the Fabian variety of socialism, which favored peaceful, gradual government interventions rather than the sweeping and violent revolutions advocated by Marxist socialists.
I never got captured by Marxist socialism, on the contrary. Then I counted socialism in its Marxist, frightfully doctrinaire form, and the Vienna socialists, Marxists, were more doctrinaire than most other places. It rather repelled me.
Hayek entered the University of Vienna, a major center of intellectual activity. The war had created poor material conditions, but the school was still a vibrant and exciting place. It was here at the university that Hayek was first introduced to the Austrian School of Economics. This group of scholars extended the insights of the 18th century economist Adam Smith regarding the workings of a free market economy. In his classic work, The Wealth of Nations, Smith had sought to explain the tremendous growth in commerce that had taken place in the West during the 17th and 18th centuries. In opposition to the dominant views of his day, Smith saw that a prosperous economy arises not from the actions of governments, but through the voluntary actions of buyers and sellers in the marketplace. In Smith's understanding, no one person or group dictates what the supply and demand of goods will be. Rather, each person acts in his or her own interest. As long as exchanges are allowed to be free and voluntary, neither buyer nor seller will trade unless they both stand to gain from the transaction. According to Smith, the ultimate consequence of all these various exchanges is a flourishing and orderly economy. Adam Smith was also the first to point out the fundamental importance of the division of labor as part of a prosperous economy. Through division of labor, the particular knowledge and skills of individual men and women contribute to the creation of a vast number of goods. This insight continues to be of central importance to our understanding of a well-ordered society. Smith's insights were extended by the Austrian school economists, beginning with the publication of Karl Menger's path-breaking book, Principles of Economics. The central point of Menger's work, which was published in 1871, was that the value of any given product is determined not by the amount of labor that went into making it, or by the costs of production, but by the individual desires of the buyer and of the seller. Each consumer determines how much of his property he is willing to give in exchange for someone else's product or service. Likewise, each producer determines how much he or she will accept for their product or service. Trade will only take place if it benefits both parties in an exchange. And only those individuals involved in the exchange have complete knowledge of the benefits they seek and what they are willing to give in exchange. This emphasis on the individual and subjective nature of economic information, which was begun by Menger and continued by the Austrian school economists, would prove to be the bedrock of Hayek's own work. The Austrian school convinced Hayek that there can be order, such as the order that exists in markets without a centralized designer. This idea opened the door to his own insights regarding spontaneous order, the division of knowledge, and the role of prices in conveying vital information, and the rule of law. These ideas would set him on a collision course with the dominant political trends of the 20th century. In 1921, Hayek received his doctorate in law, and 2 years later was granted a doctorate in political economy. While at the University of Vienna, he had studied philosophy, law, and economics. It was shortly after taking his formal degree in political economy that Hayek met Ludwig von Mises for the first time. Mises was director of the Austrian Chamber of Industry and one of the leaders of the Austrian school's second generation of scholars. He would have a deep influence on Hayek's work.
So I came to him with a letter of introduction by von Wiese, who was my real teacher, who described me as a promising economist. Mises looked at me, promising economist? I've never seen you at my lectures. But became very great friends afterwards.
Mises' book, Socialism, had a significant impact on Hayek's economic thought. In it, Mises attempted to show that in economic terms, a socialist state was technically impossible. Mises argued that since socialism denied a system of voluntary exchanges, the relative prices that provided signals for decision-making were missing. Without these signals, coordination of activities within the economy is impossible. In 1924, Hayek began attending Mises's private seminars. These events were considered the center of economic debate in Vienna.
If I'd come to him as a young student, I would probably have just swallowed his views completely. As it was, I came to him already with a degree. I'd finished my elementary course, so I approached him in a slightly more critical fashion. And being for 10 years in close contact with a man with whom conclusions you on the whole agreed, but whose arguments were not always perfectly convincing to you, was a great stimulus.
In 1927, Hayek and Mises co-founded the Austrian Institute for Business Cycle Research. The board included prominent economists. Young Hayek, the Institute's director, was beginning to solidify his reputation as a world-class economist. In 1929, Hayek began his first teaching position at the University of Vienna. That year also saw the publication of his first book, Monetary Theory and the Trade Cycle. In this work, Hayek expanded on the Austrian school's theories by developing the idea that the prices of goods and services, including interest rates, are information signals which are vital to the independent plans of consumers and producers. The main point of Hayek's book was that usually these information signals make possible harmonious and spontaneous overall adjustments within the economy. However, government intervention in the economy can cause false or distorted signals, which can ultimately lead to economic ruin. The core of the argument was simple. In a well-ordered economy, prices convey knowledge, and for the economy to function properly, that knowledge must not be distorted by government intervention. This basic idea would set Hayek in direct confrontation with two major trends in economic thinking: socialism and Keynesianism. For Hayek, economic knowledge is dispersed among individuals. This division of knowledge, as it would later be called, makes the central planning desired by socialists impossible. If prices are a way of coordinating the plans of individuals, and those plans can only be known by those individuals, then any order provided by central planning would simply be arbitrary and most likely destructive to economic prosperity. Hayek's insights were also directly at odds with government policies designed to enhance consumption, either through monetary inflation or through government spending. These policies were the very heart of John Maynard Keynes' more moderate interventionism. With his first book, Hayek had rebuffed the two most dominant trends in economic thought. In England, Hayek had come to the attention of Lionel Robbins, who was soon to head the prestigious London School of Economics, or LSE. The LSE was looking for someone intellectually capable of taking on John Maynard Keynes at the University of Cambridge. Robbins invited Hayek to come to England and give a series of 4 lectures.
Hayek literally swept the audience off its feet, and he put forward a view of the Great Depression that seemed to be both accurate and complete.
Hayek was invited to become a professor at the LSE, and in 1931 he and his family moved to London. Soon Hayek and Robbins, by now a good friend, were emulating Mises by holding their own private seminars. These lively gatherings attracted many international economists. It was during his time at the LSE that Hayek laid down the basis for his larger theory of spontaneous order. Working out the implications of his idea that prices are information signals, he began to extend this insight to the workings of society in general.
It is the idea that there can be great orderliness in a society even though there is no one doing the ordering.
To achieve this orderliness, however, it was essential that prices be allowed to fluctuate without interference.
Societies cannot be organized without the signals that come through a free enterprise system using prices and profits. Hayek thought that prices and profits primarily convey information.
Hayek's theory of information or knowledge was groundbreaking.
A market is a system of the utilization of knowledge, which nobody can possess as a whole, which only through the market situation leads people to aim at the needs of people whom they do not know, make use of facilities of which they have no direct information,